Today, we are going to learn the London system from Magnus. From the fact that he beats his own opening. Many years ago, the London system was brought back into fashion because of Magnus Carlsen. We have Gukesh playing the London with the white pieces against the man who brought this opening back into fashion. Welcome to the World Cup. Gukesh has the white pieces, Magnus Carlsen has black, and then later on we're going to see a bonus tactic in the other big World Cup matchup. D4, knight f6, bishop f4. The London system is characterized by the fact that you bring the bishop out to f4 and then you just get the pieces out. You set up a solid triangle setup. The knights come out. Queen, castle is possible, or you castle that way. Not today. Magnus actually decided to think for a little bit of time because he was surprised by Gukesh's opening choice. b6 was played. He actually thought for 5 minutes. Gukesh now changes the structure entirely because Magnus wants to go b6, bishop b7. Gukesh actually plays the Hobava London. You play the knight to c3, and you don't actually get the pawn to c3. You get the knight there instead. Bishop comes to b7 to control the square, but then f3 you're actually preparing, and Magnus actually lets it. e6 and e4 comes. This surprised me. I thought you'd play d5, but guess what? He's going to play e4 anyway. That's the thing. He's just allowing this structure. It's actually a pawn sacrifice. This looks pretty dangerous. Dun, dun, dun. What on earth is happening here? Queen is going to attack the bishop, and there's only one good move. Knight d6, you defend the bishop, and then it gets pretty messy pretty fast. Check, you might drop it back. I mean, none of this happened. Let's just go back to the game. To this moment, bishop b7, e6, Magnus actually allows Gukesh to take the center with e4. a6. Why? To stop any knight b5 funny business, because Magnus wants to strike in the center now with d5. This is the exact type of move that Magnus wants Gukesh to play, because after knight d7 we get this pawn break. It's just such a nice pawn break to happen. c5, knight c6. First, let's deal with this attack on the queen. We might go bishop e7, take, something like this. And it looks like a French now. This actually looks like a decent way for the game to continue for both sides. Now let's go back to the game. Gukesh goes crazy. Not crazy, this is in his preparation anyway. I mean, the guy has barely spent any time. Both sides get 1 hour 30 minutes to start the game, but Gukesh has actually gained time, 2 minutes. Whereas Magnus has actually lost 18 minutes. So already, this is looking pretty good for him psychologically. Now, in this situation, this is way too dangerous. You might be thinking, what is William talking about? Are you going to take on someone who's more prepared than you in this type of opening? I mean, your king is still in the middle. You're getting attacked. If you move the bishop to the wrong square, this already looks just way too dangerous. You can't do this because of c4. You just win the bishop. And this is all about initiative. You just cannot go for this psychologically. I mean, you know your opponent is going to be better prepared. You move the bishop to the wrong square, you might get attacked. And then something like this. This actually looks pretty decent, and this looks absolutely terrifying. Let's go back to the game. Castle. Bishop out to b4. One option, as you can see from the red arrow, is actually to get space this way. You plan to destabilize the knight. You're going to attack the knight, and then there might be central pressure. This is exactly what Magnus wants, because after this, the structure is locked, and then you're going to go c5. You want to break open the structure. This is looking like a really good French defense for black. Let's go back a little bit. d5, castle, and now bishop b4, pinning the knight to the queen. Now the next move surprised me because it's just inviting Magnus to play the capture, and then we capture in the center, but at least he's got another piece in the game. This move really surprised me because take. Here. This is just so crazy. Let's go back to this moment. Another choice was for Gukesh to admit, well, you've got to lock up the center now and then maybe hit the queen. Maybe this happens and then play this kind of position. And we get a French. This actually looks pretty decent for me. We get a French defense where, I mean, it used to be a London system, but so what? Top players are universal. They can adapt to any position. Knight f3, and then we continue in this fashion. So I was a bit surprised by this. a3 didn't look good to me. because it forces matters. Take, take, take. And if you take now, the knight looks very well placed in the center. You might go queen back, but then I think you castle. And then you just play this kind of position. You are down a pawn. Not for me. Let's go back a little bit. Take, d5. Gukesh strikes in the center. Knight takes. Wow. Knight takes d5. Queen takes pawn, and now queen f6. A queen trade happens. If we go back a tiny bit, I'm just trying to think, what if this one? We're going to take. Both pawns are under attack. I see. We're going to pick up the pawn, and then bishop can pick up that pawn as well. Yeah, this bishop is so strong. By the way, you can't go here because this. Oops. Tactics out of nowhere. Let's go back a little bit. Now back to the game. Gukesh blows open the position. Knight takes, hits both. You cannot take because of the rook on the queen. A queen trade is offered. It looks like Magnus has actually got out of this. Now, the times are 1 hour and 1 minute for Magnus, and Gukesh is 1 hour 7 minutes, so they both are pretty close. The queen's now come off, and then bishop e5, cool move. And a cool tactic here, you don't want to blunder. It's so easy to blunder in one move. You think you're attacking the bishop, and then you're defending the knight. That is not true. Oops. You cannot take because you lose your rook in the corner, and if you take with the king, then this bishop is amazing. You've got 2 pieces. You've got a bishop and knight for the rook. You control so many squares. So let's just go back a little bit. After this move, king e7 played. Take, attack, defend. Bishop goes back, and now rook g8. Looks like Magnus has actually done really well to get out of the woods. Now we've got this endgame where, I mean, Magnus's position looks totally fine. It's just equal, man. Let's see what happens. Bishop e2. The king deliberately steps out of any check. So king back. Take, and now knight takes in the center. Now, why did Gukesh go for this? Because you've got to get a piece in the game. He decided not to put the knight on the edge, so he takes in the center first, and then allows the knight in, and this knight looks very strong. Knight is in the center, so Gukesh challenges this knight. Anything else here? So you can't move the bishop to the wrong square. You could just get forked. No. If you go here, well, maybe the other knight can jump in. That's possible. That pawn is actually hanging. That pawn is actually hanging, and here's a pretty... Oh my gosh, what a brilliant moment. Here, we got some X-ray attack. I've never even seen this before. Whoa, this move works. Beautiful. Beautiful way to just still pick up the rook in the corner. Wow. Right, let's go back a tiny bit. Now, in this moment... Bishop f3 played. The London bishop has now disappeared, but to be honest, this hasn't really been that good, that effective. A London system for white. Take, take. Now, with this recapture, the rook does attack this, and there are only a few pawns on the board, few pieces. Is this going to whittle down to a draw? No, because I'm showing you this game. Take, take. So many options. Now, let me explain every option. Rooks both control the open file. The knight has a few effective jumps. These 2 pawns are awful. Let's look at the rooks for black. Well, that's about to come in the game. By the way, the king can't actually castle this side because the king has actually moved. One other important thing to talk about is the pawn structure. Well, these 2 pawns are awful. They're both targets. Now, what happens? Magnus takes the pawn. You take. This is not a threat because you can actually block. King e7 played. Now, why didn't this happen? Because there's a pretty cool tactic. Rook check doesn't work because the knight blocks. So, a cool deflection move, knight e5. With this move, knight e5 actually also attacks f7. You can't do this because check, and you pick up the rook. If you go back, then it looks like we pick this up. And I think white is doing fine. 3 pawns each in this situation. So, no, let's go back a tiny bit. Magnus actually goes king e7. So then the threat is now avoided. You can't go here now because you can take, because that was the point. King up 1 square. And then we don't have this check. Knight d4. A few nasty jumps. Knight e5. So what's happening here? Pressure from the rooks on that pawn. There's also pressure from white. The knight has a few jumps. The knight actually stops a jump. That can't come in. The knight controls so many squares. It actually defends f7. That's very crucial because if the rook comes, to f1 to attack f7. It can't. We've got a beautiful octopus knight in the center. I'll say black is slightly better, but it is 4 pawns each. Things are coming off pretty fast, right? Things are coming off pretty fast. Wrong. Magnus finds a way to continue the game. Rook e1, you hit the knight. King f6 is possible, and king d6 might even be possible. He attacks the knight instead. Take. So knights now come off. Now, when I saw this position and I was listening to the very high-level commentary with Peter Lecco and David Howell, that check was an option. Now, if you're being so ambitious, I remember Lecco was talking about king f6. Defend the knight. That knight is under attack. This pawn is still under attack. It just looks so dangerous to me. If knight here, you actually just slide it over. How sneaky is that? Slide it over, hit the rook, and then you deal with that. How cool is that? Cold-blooded, where you just get the pawns in. That is such a computer line. Let's go back a tiny bit. Why do I say it's a computer line? Because, I mean, the knight jumping in, it looks so dangerous. By the way, just want to show you we can all blunder in one move. Rook here, if you go knight here, there are 2 options. You can play this check because we're using the pin on here, but you might as well just pick up the rook. That's the thing. Knight here, oops, you lose in one move using the pin. Beautiful tactic there. Just want to point out these tactical moments because we can all blunder a rook in one move. Let's go back a tiny bit. Knight e5, rook e1, rook g4. You hit the knight. You cannot defend. You cannot defend. That's what I'm talking about, guys. I'm showing you these intermediate tactics. Look out for them in your own games. That's why knights now come off. There's no good jump for Gukesh. This has actually worked out so badly for him because we get an endgame where we are 23 moves in. And this is looking pretty good. Take. It's 4 pawns each. You might think it's so boring. Can this person just show me another game? No. For Magnus Carlsen, the game has really just begun. There is uncomfortable pressure. Let's talk about the difference in the quality of the rooks. That rook has a chance for the open file. Isolated pawns. That is awful. It's all alone. Black has 2 pawn islands. Well, so does white. But that pawn is a target forever. And black structure is very healthy. Rooks look pretty active, but it's that g2 target which I hate. Rook goes back to e2, cool move. It still should be a draw because it's just 4 pawns each, but that is not what's going to happen today because that's why I'm showing you this game. Rook d8, you get the open file. Magnus loves to, well, we all love to win in one move. We can all blunder mate in one. Thank you very much. No, not today. Rook d8, give the king a bit of space. Swing the rook over to f4. Why not rook g4 and then rook g8? It's because of this. If you go here, this is annoying. It's a little bit annoying, some pressure. That's why Magnus actually defends f7 and then maybe the other rook comes over. Rook g8, b5, fixing the structure. So Gukesh really needs to get the pawns rolling. One other way to get them rolling was maybe this. b3 and then 1-2. But I'm not complaining here. Let's have a look. b4, b5, fixing the structure a little bit. Now the king can support and advance. Feels like a draw. It feels like a draw, but you guys are still watching, so it can't be a draw. Or else why on earth would this dude just show a random rook endgame draw on YouTube? No way. No way. Rook fg4, we put pressure. Rook f2, great move. Because you're not going to play a tragic move like this. Oh my god. Might as well just give up. That rook has no good squares. There's no point in defending this pawn. In rook endgames, it's actually worth being down a pawn if you get an active rook. Active pieces. So rook f2 is a great move. Rook g7, defend against it. A pair of rooks come off. It's still 4 pawns each. a4, good move. Also makes sense because you've got to get your pawns rolling. White is winning on the queen side. Black has a passed pawn. Time to get this rolling as well. It's 4 versus 4. Who's going to win? f5, take, and now rook a2. Gukesh chooses to swing over. c4 is a very interesting move. I don't blame Gukesh for not playing it because that check looks awful. If you move the king, you've just lost a pawn. If you block, it looks like you lose this one, but then you take that one. Rook f3, take. It is 2 each. These 2 pawns are higher quality because they are not doubled. But these 2 pawns are fast, supported by the king. Maybe the rook goes back. You can just push. You can't, well, no, don't push. Just maybe rook here or get the king in. How about this? Check. Well, so what? here. And then the game goes on. Maybe Gukesh didn't really like something. I don't like this. I don't blame him, because this doesn't look nice at all. This doesn't look nice. Let's go back to the game. So maybe that's why I didn't play this push. Maybe that's why. But all the other moves actually lose. You've got to play the push. Let's just check this out a little bit, because I need to learn something as well. Check here. Take here. And let's say rook back. That looks normal. Rook c3. Okay, cut the rook off. Okay, what if push? We're going to push. What if this? Oh, maybe this. Okay, find an active way to defend. So that's a cool move. You actually cut the king off, and then this dude can come over. Okay, if you attack it, you just come after that, and now these two pawns are fixed. So 1, 2, 3. Looks like they are going to drop. They could drop. The king can fix itself on e4. Hold them, and then that holds, and then things should come off. Yeah, looks like a draw. Yuck, man. Yuck. Chess is so... It's just too close, man. This game is just way too close. So Gukesh actually chose to swing the rook over because he was feeling a bit unsure about this c4 move. Rook g5, check. King f6. Ugh, dear, man. Chess is harsh. You only got one move, because this rook has to hold on to that. White doesn't actually have time to go after this, because if this, you can just push. You can take this one here, here, here. This probably looks a little bit faster. A tiny bit faster for black. Let's just go back a tiny bit. Let's go back rook a2, f4, rook g3. You actually stop the pawn break now. If black did not play that, let's say here, that might be a draw. Here, here. The king might come back in time. It's 2 pawns against 2 pawns. All right, pretty close rook endgame. Chance was not possible. Really accurate move by Magnus to stop Gukesh moving that pawn. King in, king in. Oh no, oh no. Oh no, not only has he fixed the pawn, but now he's got them rolling. That pawn really doesn't exist. We've got 2 future queens, potentially, and you've frozen the structure. You have frozen the structure, so that means on the queen side, white cannot really push this pawn, or else it's just gone. There's no way to get the pawns rolling. You fixed it. It's just total domination. 3 pawns each. Black's rook is also more active. Check. Oh yeah, here's another cool moment. We can all blunder mate in one. You might be thinking, why is William showing these random tactics? These are not random. All these top players see these tactics, so that's why you never see top grandmasters falling for these tactics. That's mate in one. We can all get boxed in with mate in one. So Magnus just goes the other way. 1, 2. Gonna take this. Gonna get the pawns rolling. What else to say? Push. Sidestep. Push. Check. Doesn't matter. There's no time. You take me. I just keep pushing. That's what happens. Check. Check. Come in. Assist the pawn. We are good. Gukesh now resign. Check. And game over. And if you just ignore it, turns out that is a normal way to block. You build the bridge, so then the rook cannot stop the pawn. So crushing attack. And it started with the London, and then this opening surprise. It's not a common move. Turns out Gukesh wanted to surprise Magnus, and then Magnus surprised Gukesh in the end with this opening novelty, and then classic Magnus getting an endgame and then winning. For the show notes, see the top comment below. That's what I tend to do nowadays. All the key points, I'll put a timestamp, and then it's just for people to refer back to. Check the top comment below. Welcome to the FIDE World Cup. I'll see you later.